The NBA is so crazy to me. In the NBA, you could assemble one of the most talented big threes to touch a basketball floor, and you would still need everything to go right in order to win an NBA championship. Now, I know this isn't 2K. I know this isn't my GM. I know in the NBA, there are a lot of different moving parts. But for some reason, it still feels surreal to see what it takes to win a championship. When Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Kevin Durant landed on one roster, what's the first thing that everybody thought? I'll tell you, championship. You know what? I take that back. There were a lot of people that were very mad at the fact that these three even assembled a team. The whole super team term got tossed around so many times, man, I didn't even know what to do. So you know what? I'd say that championship was up there, but so was the term super team. I guess you could say maybe they go hand in hand, but here we are in the 2021-2022 NBA season, and the Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Kevin Durant Big Three have no championship. For everybody that was mad at this Big Three assembling, I have a question. Are you guys still mad? If you are, I definitely understand why, but if you're not, I'd like to hear your explanation. Whenever I talk about the Brooklyn Nets, one of the first things that comes to my mind is Kevin Durant's infamous shot. Remember when I told you guys that a lot has to go right in order for a team to win a championship? Well, what if Kevin Durant's 2 was a 3? What if instead of OT, he just ended it right there and capped off one of the nastiest playoff performances that I'd ever seen? What if Kyrie doesn't go down? What if Harden was 100%? The thing that gets me with the Brooklyn Nets is that they have so much talent, but they also have so many questions, regardless of how close that they were last season. October 2021, James Harden would drop this quote while passing on a massive contract extension from the Brooklyn Nets. I love it here. Myself and Joe and Clara and Sean in the front office and Steve Nash, from top to bottom, the communication has been unbelievable. It's been amazing. I feel at home. It's nothing to worry about. For me, individually, I just want to focus on this year, and that's it. I don't plan on leaving this organization and the situation that we have. So my focus, honestly, is just focus on the season and then winning the championship. The contract and all that stuff will bear itself out, but my focus is going to be locked on this season. It really doesn't get talked about enough, but one of the major reasons that Harden didn't sign the extension at this time was because by passing on this extension, he would be able to opt into a $47.4 million contract for the 2022-2023 season, and then he would be able to sign a 4-year, $223 million extension at the start of free agency next summer. That extension would include $61.8 million in the last year, and it would also make Harden the first player to earn over $60 million in a year. Yeah, guys, the contracts are getting crazy. Hey, anyways, at this point in time, it was really clear what Harden's intentions were for himself and for the Brooklyn Nets, with one of his main intentions for himself being, hey, I want to go out and get this championship. I've done it all in Houston. I've put up big numbers. I've broken records. I've shown everybody that I'm one of the best scorers of all time. I've shown everybody that I'm one of the greatest offensive shooting guards to touch a basketball. It's time for something different. Harden had some really great playoff runs in Houston, but I think it became clear to everybody that Harden's time in Houston had already reached its peak. With Harden's sights being set on a championship, it was clear that he needed a change. Harden's sights wanting a championship is one of his main reasons for coming to Brooklyn. The ultimate goal is to compete for a championship, Harden said, and win a championship. That's one of the reasons I wanted to come to Brooklyn. I think everybody in this organization feels the same way. While everything is most likely fine and we're looking into speculative sources here, part of me wonders if James Harden feels any different about that last part of the quote where he said, I think everybody in this organization feels the same way about winning a championship. For some players on the roster like Harden, like KD, like Blake, it's obvious that championship is one of their main priorities. Keep in mind, that James Harden has never won a championship. On top of that, there's been a lot of negativity associated with his name because of the fact that he hasn't won a championship. A championship for James may hit harder than a championship for some of the other players on the Brooklyn Nets roster. While James Harden relatively struggled early in the season, and I say relative because James Harden's struggles are not the same as everybody else's. While he relatively struggled early in the season, since Christmas, he's been averaging over 27.2 points per game. So far in January, Harden's been averaging 24 points per game, 11 assists per game, and over 7 boards per game. And whether we like it or not, he's back to getting to the line. His true shooting percentage is through the roof, with KD being sidelined for at least 4 weeks and Kyrie Irving being a part-time player. The unfortunate reality for Harden is that he's going to have to keep doing numbers. He's going to have to keep logging heavy minutes, high usage rates. As I told you guys with KD earlier in the season, I'm really just hoping that these guys don't get burnt out by playoff time. Harden gets a lot of hate, but man, you got to give this guy props for the way that he's been able to consistently carry offenses. What he does is not easy. For James Harden at this stage of his career, it's obvious why he would want help if help is available. James Harden and Kyrie together are so tough that January 12th, James Harden said the faster and quicker we can get Kyrie to be able to play home games, the better we look as a unit. And then January 13th, Harden would even go on and joke that he would give Kyrie Irving the shot himself. Kyrie would reportedly dead all that noise yesterday by saying that I've made my decision and I'm standing on it. I think that now is a good time to remind you guys that earlier in the season, Nets GM Sean Marks said we're not looking for partners that are going to be halftime. And I think it's also a good time to remind you guys that as of right now, there is no extension in place for Kyrie Irving. If you ask me, I think that is a bit of a big deal for the Brooklyn Nets, especially if these reports about James Harden are true. Check it out. According to Mark Stein, James Harden leaving the Nets this summer is reportedly not out of the question. There is enough noise circulating league-wide about Harden's reported openness to relocation this summer. Quote, perhaps Joel Embiid has also been sold on a concept that executives with a growing number of rival teams say they see as Morey's new preferred scenario, keeping Simmons beyond the trade deadline to exhaust every last possibility for executing a complicated sign-and trade in the offseason that finally brings James Harden to Philadelphia and routes Simmons to Brooklyn. Now, this could be a very unpopular opinion, and you guys can let me know if I'm tripping, but hey, I think getting Ben Simmons wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing for the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, you don't want to lose James Harden. Nobody does. You never want to lose James Harden. Again, let me know if I'm tripping because I can trip sometimes. I'm only human. But I think Ben Simmons alongside Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving could be a lot of fun. We're talking about a great passer, a great slasher in Ben Simmons, alongside 2 perimeter-oriented offensive players who are among the best offensive players in the game today. That sounds absolutely devastating. Brooklyn has been working on building a defensive identity. Think of the small ball possibilities with KD and Ben Simmons manning the big positions. You know what though? I really don't like that move as much when I remember the fact that Kyrie Irving may still only be a part-time player. I don't even like that term. It feels weird to say. That being said, of course, James Harden in Philly would be nuts. I don't even have to explain that. When James Harden in Philly with Embiid, I mean, could you imagine the Sixers playing the Milwaukee Bucks? That'd be must-see TV. Nets 76ers would also be just like a phenomenal series to watch. There are a lot of good possibilities here, and it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. That being said, if I'm Brooklyn, scratch the noise. We'll figure it out along the way. We got to focus on now. We got to focus on stringing together more wins. We have to focus on making sure we don't fall apart, losing one of our best players. We have to focus on finding ways to lighten the load of one of the most unique offensive players of all time. Do you guys think that there's any chance that Kyrie actually gets it? I actually think that there's like a solid one. I don't know why. I think that's irrational to even say, but I guess we'll all see how it plays out. Like I said, a Harden sign-in trade is wishful thinking, to be honest. That being said, where would you guys like to see James Harden playing basketball? Clicking the video on the screen right now is a great way to support my channel. I'm GetLikeCoop, bringing you guys the scoop. Until our next upload.